And we're here today to talk about the Master of Arts and Graduate Diploma in Climate Action Leadership. Myself, Nancy Prévost-Maurice, I'm an education specialist at Royal Roads University. I'm also part of the program in the Master of Arts, what we call the MACAL program. And I'm here with Dr. Robin Cox that will give us way more explanation about the program. If you want to introduce yourself, Robin, thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Robin, and I am the program head of the McCall program. I also run a research center called the Resilience by Design Lab at Royal Roads that does a lot of other related work on climate action and with a specific focus on climate adaptation and building capacity through education such as this program.
Wonderful. Thank you. And thank you everyone for being here. I invite you to really get settled, maybe grab a cup of coffee or tea, or maybe your lunch. It's lunchtime here in Victoria, BC, and really be present with us to learn more about the program. And we'll take your question later on. When we start an event at Royal Roads or really everywhere in British Columbia, I find that we take a moment to welcome and acknowledge the land that we are on. So here at Royal Roads University, the campus is located on the traditional lands of the Laquaxon and Cosapson families and nations, which are known as the Esquimalt and Songhees nations. So it's with gratitude that we work, learn, play here on these lands that have been used by the indigenous communities over the past, present, and future. So we really learn how to come together as Indigenous and non-Indigenous students, faculty, and staff. I invite you maybe to use the chat option to let us know which land are you on today. If you know, if you don't, you can just use the town that you're in. And really, again, just an invitation to connect with the ground where you are and just reflect on all the past history of that land. And here's the agenda for today. We'll do a brief overview of the Royal Roads University experience. We'll talk about the program, and we'll talk about admission and application process. We welcome the questions throughout the presentation, so feel free to use the chat. And I have my colleague, Francisco, that is here behind the scene, and we might have a few people from the enrollment team. I'm just looking briefly at the participants. So hopefully some people will pop some links. I'll do so as well. And when we share the recording link with everybody, we'll make sure to include those links for you so you can learn from the question that we get throughout the session. Why explore Royal Roads University? So I'm not sure if some of you are familiar with our institution. So at Royal Road, we see life as a qualification. What that means for us is that we really welcome you as you are. We acknowledge the experience you're bringing with you. It's not just about a transcript. It's about who you are, all the volunteer you do, the work experience. So it's really we embrace the full life experience here. The second bullet is Prof who know your name. So with the cohort-based model that we'll chat about today, and really the small group that we live with at Royal Roads, we experience that the prof will know our name as we will get to know our professors, we get to know our cohort very well. So that's very different of people that have been maybe to other institutions when you will be in a big lecture hall with 200 people, for example. So it's really, you know, the people that you work with, that they become your colleagues, your friends, and really good contacts. Learning based on life, what I like to say is that what you learn in your program will be applied the very next day. So you can bring any challenges, issue, things that you have in your current workplace, or maybe that you had in the past, and then you can bring them at the table and we can discuss that with the cohort, with the professors. So it's very an applied learning. Connection for life, a little bit as I mentioned with the cohort-based model, the connection for life is that you will stay connected with your network, with your cohort throughout the program, but after that as well. We have an amazing network of alumni at Royal Roads. We have a platform for them to connect. So there's really, you learn when you're in the program, but that learning will continue on. And the last bullet, we were built differently. And that is true. So we say online learning, and it's not just about what you have done maybe elsewhere, where it's just like you connect and you're just like one-way learning. It's really a bidirectional learning. We have a lot of experience, a lot of tools, online tools to make your experience very unique. Not sure if you want to add anything on this, Robin. I know you know the institution quite well.
Sure, I would just echo everything you said. And I think during COVID, a lot of universities have joined online, and many of them have had to do it quickly. So I will say, just to emphasize that point, that the online experience at Royal Roads is very dynamic, interactive. It's not just, here's a PowerPoint, here's a reading, do it and I'll see you in a month. You know, you're engaging in discussions and learning activities with each other and with your professors. And so it's a very dynamic environment, and it's an environment that Royal Roads has had over 25 years experience in crafting. So it wasn't a big shift for us during COVID. It was just an extension of what we already do and have done for over 25 years.
That's very true. And when we talk about we were built differently, we were built for working professional as well. So people that have been maybe away from school for a few years, and people that want to continue working and learning. So this is quite different of what we know as a post-secondary institution. And on the next slide here, we are super proud to be a Changemaker campus. In Canada, there's just 7 Changemaker campuses and a total of 42 in the world. So you can read here what is a Changemaker education. And Ashoka, this network, Ashoka University, is really about social innovation in higher education. So I invite you to maybe be curious and go online to check that out. It's an accreditation we're very proud to have as an institution that really address everything that is innovation, entrepreneurship, and yeah, everything about social science as well. And here, I think, Robin, you added this slide about the Climate Action Campus.
Yeah, so Royal Roads has made a deep commitment to engaging in climate action. The McCall program, the MA and the Graduate Diploma in Climate Action Leadership are part of that. We also have a robust climate action plan that details a lot of strategies that pertain to building capacity with our students, with the communities that we touch through directly for, you know, where we're located, but also through our students and our faculty who are distributed across Canada and internationally. And this idea that we are, through education, through training, and through research and collaboration, really amplifying climate action on both the mitigation and adaptation. So both focusing on reducing greenhouse gas emissions and mitigating global warming, and then addressing through our actions and through the actions of our students and faculty, this goal of being adaptive and resilient in the face of impacts that we can no longer avoid. And so there's a real commitment to that across the university. There's a number of programs in the School of Environment and Sustainability in which this program is located that include a focus on climate action and regenerative sustainability. But those principles are part of the fabric of the university across our programs. And it's a way of living leaning into and living that Ashoka Changemaker campus orientation, which is making positive social change and really having an impact on the world through what we do.
Yeah, totally. And here, before we jump into talking more about the program, just a few pictures of the campus and who we are again. So on the top left is Hatley Castle, a castle that was built in 1908 as a retirement house. And now we use it for events, and we have sometimes classroom. That's a living building. We have some of the people that work at Royal Roads that will work in the castle. And this program is online, but we have a residency, COVID depending. We'll talk more about it, but most of the time students will come on campus for a residency. Then you'll be able to enjoy Hatley Castle, walk around. We have a lot of trail, as you can see, old growth forest. We have the Japanese garden, rose garden, Italian garden. There's so many beautiful space around campus to just go for a walk, go for a picnic, sit down with your cohort, learn from each other. At the bottom left, you can see the Esquimalt Lagoon, same thing. The campus is facing the lagoon, which is a bird sanctuary. So there's a lot of other programs that will use, for example, the lagoon for like science and lab stuff. And this is a wonderful place you can just go for a walk. And as Robin mentioned, the online learning for 25 years, Railroad University was created in 1995. And since day one, we do online learning. So it's not something we had to pivot. It's not something that is like in case that we cannot be in person. It's really that blended model that works really well for people all across the world. And I'll pass it over to you, Robin.
Great, thank you. So the remainder of this is really an overview of the program. And as Nancy's already said, please reach into the chat if you've got questions as we go along, and we will answer those as we go. So why climate action leadership? Why would you be interested in this program, and why be a climate action leader? And we, as I presume most of you know, and are fully aware of the state we're in relationship to global warming and climate change, and the urgency of responding to that, both, as I said earlier, in terms of reducing greenhouse gas emissions, transitioning to, new energy systems, and a just transition to a low or no carbon, future. So we've got that. We've also got impacts, and if you live here in British Columbia, but pretty much anywhere in the world, Ontario recently with the storms there, we are experiencing those impacts, and those impacts are escalating, are extending, and there's a great deal of unpredictability about them, because there's a great deal of unpredictability, not about the fact of climate change, but as to how it will impact us regionally. We've got information and models, so we have a sense of what's going to happen, but we don't know for sure. But we know that there's going to be an increase in these kinds of extreme weather events and these kinds of natural hazard related disasters, whether it's flooding or the tornado and windstorms that Toronto or Ontario and Quebec experienced recently. So this is a particular moment in time where we really need leadership on climate action, and leadership in the sense of not you're going to be a politician, maybe you are already, or maybe you want to be, but really understanding that we are all leaders, and we need leadership across sectors, across institutions, across disciplines, and leaders who really understand and have the capacity to influence change, influence policy, influence actions at the local level, regional level, provincial and federal level, and global levels. So this is really an opportunity through a transdisciplinary program, which just means that we're working against those traditional silos of here's psychology and here's business and here's environment, to say we need these disciplines to be speaking to each other, to be changing each other, and that we need leaders who have that capacity themselves, who can draw from different disciplines. Just before this webinar began, I was talking to Nancy, who, as she said, is a student in a cohort in McCall, about one of the courses she's in, and it's focused on the business and being able to build a business case for adaptation and for other climate actions. That sits alongside with learning about climate communication and change making, and how to support change in organizations and communities. So it really is a transdisciplinary program at a time when that kind of transdisciplinary lens and that kind of leadership is absolutely needed in every way across society, across societies, plural. Next slide, please. So climate action, these buzzwords come out and they mean different things to different people, and sometimes, very quickly lose their meaning. But what we're talking about really is that integration of adaptation, mitigation, reducing disaster risks, reducing and preparing for those, and really integrating a social justice and equity lens and these other sustainable development goals around education and building resilience and building vibrant communities in the context of complex problems. So that diagram gives you a sense of how these things come together. And in climate action, really at that space of reducing vulnerability and enhancing resilience by drawing on and considering all of these things. Next slide, please. So a lot of students coming to Royal Roads, probably to any university, are thinking about jobs, and that's not the only reason for doing a university degree or education, but it's certainly a consideration for all of us. And what we know about jobs right now, and I didn't have time to update the slide, I just received an email from someone with a list of new jobs. What we're seeing right now is a real increase in jobs related to climate action. Those are both on the mitigation side, the race to net zero, and on the adaptation side, the race to resilience, terms that the UN uses. And you know that there are opportunities on the mitigation side, looking at green energy and new green products and services, looking at how we shift, how we work, how we do the work, and areas of work such as in forestry and natural resources, and really looking at our relationship to the earth and facilitating and leading change in systems to accomplish that. These are really large, complex issues. They're not easy one-off solutions. And so on the climate mitigation, there's a lot of jobs related to those things in the sort of green revolution and post, well, we're not really post-COVID, but in the period in COVID in which we're in, where those investments and COVID investments in upskilling and reskilling and workforce development around not only climate, but around many of these systems issues that intersect with climate. There's also the adaptation side, and there's an increasing number of jobs. I have a former student that is working in a local community in the south part of Vancouver Island, focusing on resilience and this idea of resilience officers and resilience offices within organizations, within First Nations and with First Nations and Indigenous communities is taking off. We're seeing jobs that focus specifically on developing, managing, and enacting adaptation in organizations and institutions like Royal Roads and in businesses, leading the incorporation of adaptation and resilience into every sector. And that's going to take off even more in the next year. By the end of the year, the federal government will be launching the National Adaptation Strategy here in British Columbia, and it's different across every province. So I'm most familiar with British Columbia because I live here. Here in British Columbia, we have a climate adaptation strategy, a preparedness and adaptation strategy that has already been launched. And there's going to be a lot of activity over the coming years, an increasing focus on adaptation. And that is in response to the reality that we have not globally been able to come together and reduce our emissions in ways that will keep global warming to likely even 1.5, although that's still a target that people talk about. And I think there's a lot of emphasis right now on trying to keep below 2 degrees. Regardless, a lot of those changes and impacts of that global warming are already being felt, as we've just said, and are going to increase. So this focus on how we help communities, organizations, businesses, governments adapt practices and policies, and how we support resilience with individuals and communities, et cetera, is an increasing focus. And we're seeing that in the job market. Next slide.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more, Robin. I'm so
Yeah.
impressed every week, every job offer we get throughout the program. We get those emails from the School of Environment and Sustainability, and amazing opportunities with so many different organizations.
Yeah, and that, as I say, that in the time that, in the time from sort of conceptualizing to building this program, 3-4 years, I've seen that increase, and we track it as well through LinkedIn and other sources. And it just every month it's increasing, this understanding that every organization in every sector is going to have to consider climate in a real way in terms of how it impacts them as an organization, how they respond to that in terms of their investments and their own carbon footprint, and how they adapt. And if COVID has taught us nothing else, I think it's taught us a lot, whether we integrate those lessons or not. These things happen quickly. They happen in sometimes unexpected, and although we talk about unpredictable, so I think they're generally predictable, but certainly with lots of emergence and surprises in them. And the need to, the word pivot came to the fore in the COVID context, but this idea that we need to be changing how we are in the world, what we do, how we are in relationship with each other, with the planet. And these are going to result, these processes and needs are resulting and will continue to result in a really expanding job market around climate action. Yeah, next slide. So a little bit about the program. It is described as a blended program. COVID has obviously had an impact on us the way it has an impact on you and everyone. So currently it's fully online. It is primarily an online program, as are most of the programs at Royal Roads, which allows someone like Nancy, or I mean, Nancy's at Royal Roads, but any of you who are working to be able to live and work in your communities, to carry on with your work and still get a graduate education, a dynamic graduate education. But there are, depending on those circumstances in the program, these things we call residencies. We call them in this program learning intensives, partly to signal that they are intense, and also just sort of a different language in this context of where we're at in our reconciliation and decolonizing process and residential schools. So anyway, these learning intensives, the first one, which we just finished actually, is a 10-day learning intensive. Again, it was online this year, and it's really a deep dive into some of the core concepts and skills and practices that support success in the program. So it really provides that foundation. The second one is at the end of the program. So they kind of bracket the program. The second one is designed as a conference. And we know that that conference will be blended right from the start. We're hoping that we'll have face-to-face then, but also blended, because it will be a conference that doesn't only involve students and faculty, but also the larger public and people from other organizations and institutions. In between that is this experiential online open learning experience. It's designed, as programs are at Royal Roads, for the flexibility you need to continue working and do graduate school and have a life and raise your kids and maybe have a holiday here and there. But anyway, so it's about 15 to 20 hours a week of learning, and that includes reading and thinking and engaging in discussions, etc., and assignments. We use two platforms in this program. We use Moodle, which is a learning management system that you have to sign into, and so there's a firewall. And we use that in this program for things, for discussions or for resources that need to be behind a firewall, so that there's some sense of trust and confidence, and that we're adhering to copyright, etc. But we also use WordPress. All the courses are hosted on a WordPress site. And that means that they're all open. Anyone, you can look at every course and see what the readings are, see what the learning activities are, get a sense and a flavor of what those courses are from the WordPress sites. It also means that every student will also have their own instance of a WordPress site. And that allows for blogging, which is a way of sharing information. This academic blogging, it's not talking about your holidays or your personal life, but it's a way of sharing as a scholar and an emerging scholar and leader, your thinking. And there will be assignments that relate to those blogs, and we'll have an opportunity to look at a couple of them at the end of this presentation. So as with any institution, we also have lots of support services, including a computer help desk, which offers some supports around your computer within the learning intensive in the first year. We also help you set up those blogs. So it's not, you must understand all of this, but we walk you through it and walk you through a graduated process of getting familiar with how to use those WordPress tools. There are a ton of student support services at Royal Roads, and we always encourage students to take full advantage of them, whether they're career counseling, personal counseling, other kinds of supports around disability and access. Excuse me for 1 second. Library, we've got great librarians who are very eager to help with searches and support your developing ability to do those searches. Obviously access to databases, etc., where we go to journal articles. financial aid, etc. So this is we often talk about Royal Roads as a high touch institution. And what we mean by that is this is an institution where there is a great deal of interaction with students and a lot of support and a lot of proactive support. And that's not true of every university. I'm sure it's true of some, but it really is a hallmark of Royal Roads that you are, not only that the prof knows your name, but that you really have a lot of wraparound support as you are going through the program.
This is so true, Robin. And I think we can even add that we have a team coach working with us. I think that's something very unique that I wasn't aware before I started the program. And it's nice to be able to connect with the team coach as a team, but even as an individual to get some cues or how to get set up for the next assignment or to get some support. It's very nice. And as you mentioned, the library with the writing center, a lot of very useful resources for us students. Yeah.
Yeah, and since you've raised the team coach, I'll just touch on that before that. The university really values teamwork, and I know not everyone listening to this webinar will agree with that, but teamwork is a critical part. It's a critical skill for the 21st century. It's absolutely critical within the climate action space because so much of what is happening and needs to happen is collaborative. So it may be an emergent team, an emergent, constellation of players from different sectors, from different levels of government, et cetera. So developing these skills of how to work in these collaborative units, whether they're teams or emergent groups, et cetera, really critical part of climate action and of many of the programs at Royal Roads. Yeah, next slide. So this program, and I won't go through all the program outcomes, you can find those on the program website, but we do have, as I said, this transdisciplinary orientation because climate action is transdisciplinary. It requires insights and contributions from multiple different areas. So we cover climate science, and it's climate science for social scientists. You're not going to emerge as a climate scientist, but you'll have a good understanding of climate science. And that's really critical for you to work in this space. Climate communication, also super critical. I think at this time in our relationship with climate change, communication is one of the most important areas because we're communicating with each other. We're trying to communicate with people who may already be engaged or maybe disengaged, and really understanding how to shape communication for a specific audience, for a specific message, for a specific time and context. We look at climate risk management, also an enormous part of whether you become, and use risk management, understanding how risk management works in the climate space is also, again, really critical, whether you're working in an organization of business, whether you're working in a government office, whether you're working in an institution like Royal Roads, where you're helping inform and show leadership in an organization around how the organization understands climate risk and then takes action on it. I've already talked about, business. We adopt a design thinking orientation through a lot of what we do because it's a creative approach to problem solving and an approach that really is grounded in kind of multidisciplinary, transdisciplinary thinking, in really supporting innovation. And those are things that those, again, are skills that are 21st century skills and very much a part of climate action. And then change management and change leadership. You're also going to learn content areas like adaptation and resilience literacy, critical and creative transdisciplinary thinking, adaptive decision making. So there's a whole host of competencies, and the program is linked to a climate adaptation competency framework that we developed in the Resilience by Design lab at Royal Roads, with the input of lots of other people nationally and internationally. So it's really a competency-oriented program with learning outcomes that relate to those competencies that are needed for climate action. Yeah, next slide. So who's in the program? It's diverse. We've got people working with and within Indigenous communities and Indigenous students themselves, people working in post-secondary, working as entrepreneurs in a whole range of different areas, planning, working in cities and municipalities, working in provincial governments and federal governments. We have folks that are coming to us with a real grassroots activist orientation. It's not a program designed for activism, but activists are a core part of climate action. So it's neither focusing on it nor excluding it and saying, we want everyone to bring the skills and the passion and the orientation that they have, the background experience that they have from previous education and work, and bring those and add on this layer of skills that are very focused on climate action, and with that combination be a leader in whatever space it is they want to work in or they're already working in, whether that's in utilities or government or business or education or any other number, healthcare, natural resources. All of these things are part of where we need to be focusing climate action leadership.
Yeah. And what I like about what you said, Robin, on the previous slide is about the outcomes too. I think most of us in the program can see that what we're learning, we're applying it right now, depending of what sector we're in. The
Yeah.
design thinking, all those outcomes help us so much in our daily life, even if it's not necessarily in climate action. So that's very fascinating as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Next slide, please. So some of this we've already talked about. It's a cohort model. That means you're learning with your peers. The advantages that Nancy's already described, which are not only that you're learning from and with each other and bringing your knowledge. So you're not just a recipient of knowledge, you're also bringing that in. It's a social learning environment. That also supports very early on and throughout the program, developing your professional networks, both from within your peer group and then with outside speakers and faculty members, et cetera, so that when you emerge from the program, you already have a strong professional network. It's student-centered. It's a flex. I mean, all programs at Railroads are, but this one in particular has some unique aspects and some areas in the second year, if you're doing the full degree, that allow you to customize your learning. So it's a 36 credit graduate program. 9 of those credits are up to you to design with support. We don't just sort of let you go and say good luck with it. But you can add in graduate certificates, you can add in micro credentials, you can use previous learning to pull into a portfolio, you can use webinars and MOOCs and a whole range of ways that we learn to build that portfolio of 9 credits of learning, and really use that to focus in on what you're passionate about, where you want to do additional learning, and where you want to have the greatest impact. So that's a unique part of this program. Open learning, already talked about that a little bit. It's really that idea that rather than wait till the end of your degree to share your learning with whomever you're sharing it with, professionally and personally, that you're doing that as you go, and you're making that learning visible, and you're sharing both what you've learned and the process of learning, et cetera. And by doing that, already having an impact as a change leader, as a climate action leader. There's a strong social justice and equity lens in the program that has to be a part of climate action. There's no way that we're going to achieve, a resilient future, a future we want to live in, without that lens. And then this hands-on experience. There's internship options, there's applied research options, both in terms of a thesis, but also in terms of community projects as part of that customized learning. And throughout the program is experiential learning. So these are really some of the grounding processes and orientations that we have to really support that idea that's in the title there, that you as a student and as a graduate of a program have real world impact. And that's what we need. And that's really the orientation of the program. Next slide. You got a couple of credential pathways. One is a diploma, one is the master's. They kind of parse out to 1 year versus 2 and a bit. The graduate diploma is an 18 credit graduate diploma. It includes all the first year courses. It provides a pathway into the master's program. So we often in this program and in other programs have students that want to test the waters, will decide to do a diploma, and then somewhere during that diploma say, yeah, I want to do the full master's. You don't have to, but that's an option. And, to do that, you have to maintain a grade point average to be able to transfer into the degree. The diploma offers a number of things. It offers a less expensive option because it's only 1 year. It offers a way of testing the waters. And for some students come in with other master's degrees and really only want or need a diploma. The full master's, the completion of the degree, there's a bit of a typo in there I didn't catch earlier, but it's through the program sits in the School of Environment and Sustainability, not interdisciplinary studies, but it is, as I said, a transdisciplinary program. So you complete your degree through this program, but with these options for personalizing your learning in a portfolio, in a 9-credit portfolio. You may take courses from other programs at Royal Roads or other universities for that matter. You may take courses, as I said, in terms of micro-credentials, so not for credit things, and turn them into credit as part of the program. That also allows people to do some of that work in advance of the program and ladder into the program and have a lighter course load in the second year. Year one, Foundation in Climate Action Leadership. So this just lists the courses, really gives you a sense of that transdisciplinary nature. These are the courses, and we'll if we have time, show you a couple of the course websites where you can see what those courses consist of. And they will always be revised. So we have an iterative design thinking is an iterative process. And I will say we use design thinking to build the program and to continue to improve and revise the program based on feedback from students like Nancy, based on feedback from faculty, and of course, updating readings. This is a very emergent area and there's new data, new information, new readings all the time. And so we really are iterating the program with that same consistent structure, but over each cohort. Next slide. So year two, which is what we said is the master's, next slide, is a way, so you'll have done year one and you've got a couple of choices in year two. One is to do the scholar practitioner stream, which is really an emphasis on applied research through doing a thesis. And that's a much more traditional master's program approach where you do the first year of courses and then you may do a couple more courses and focus in on a thesis. Thesis is an opportunity for you to explore a question that's of interest to you around climate action, and that may be of interest to your organization or your community, et cetera. And to really, again, another way of personalizing your learning by focusing in on what you're passionate about and what's a burning question for you. The other route is practitioner scholar. This is the route that is, in other programs might be a course-based route. It is, but it's a bit more than that because of this customized learning opportunity, which can include courses, but it can include other learning opportunities like being mentored by an elder or engaging in an experiential project within a community or designing a workshop, etc. So there's multiple ways that you can personalize that learning that include courses, but are not limited to courses. And it's really a deeper dive for applied practice for students. So related to that and to that pathway, we have also been working to build a suite of micro-credentials. And micro-credentials are really shorter courses, cheaper courses that take, maybe like 4 weeks as opposed to 10 weeks or months or whatever, that allow for a sort of a more micro focus on a specific topic. So we currently have a micro-credential, a climate action practitioner micro-credential that is 4 courses. It's a total of 18 weeks, mostly asynchronous learning. So there's very little synchronous work in the micro-credential, which doesn't mean that there aren't synchronous sessions, but those are optional and are always recorded. So it's always, I think, more interesting if you can join, but it also acknowledges that, if there's a synchronous session at 5 p.m. in British Columbia, that may not work for you if you're in Nova Scotia, putting your kids to bed. So anyway, this micro-credential, this also is the beginning of a suite of micro-credentials around climate action, micro-credentials that will allow you to do deeper dive in communication or financing or, nature-based solutions, etc. So you can check out this. It's being offered through the Professional and Continuing Studies or unit. And again, these are not for credit courses, but within the McCall program, you can pull them into your portfolio and with a little additional work, turn them into credit, which is a nice option. Next slide. This just describes, again, what some of those, the existing micro-credential is, but also what it will become over the next year, which is, you'll see there's 2 core courses on climate adaptation fundamentals. So again, a bit of understanding not only the science of climate science, but also adaptation and mitigation. It's a very dynamic course. We've run it, I think, about 7 or 8 times now, and we get a ton of really good feedback on it. And it won't duplicate what you get in the climate science course, but it would be another way of, if you do it in advance of coming into the program, of preparing for that course or supplementing that course. The other required course is Indigenous Knowledges and Perspectives on Climate Action. And again, both in the program and the university, we strongly believe in the absolute importance of decolonization and reconciliation. And having this as a core course is a recognition of that to enter into the space of climate action and to be part of creating a climate just future, we as non-Indigenous people, and I'll speak for myself, need to understand and learn more about Indigenous perspectives and be able to walk alongside that. For Indigenous students, obviously, they're already having to do that because they're having to walk alongside a dominant culture model. So those are core courses. And then we look at various electives: natural asset management, climate communication, climate policy, transition leadership, so leading in change, and financial impacts. And that suite will increase over the next year. So you can pull that in through previous learning, PLAR, previous learning and assessment and recognition. I think that's what that is. I never get it right, but you can either do some of that work and other work and bring it in through previous learning into your portfolio, or do that work during that period when you have time to do the portfolio learning. You'll get assessment for the credential pathway. So in that scenario, you would also get a micro-credential, a badge, through a credentialing system, in addition to whatever you get in the program with your diploma or your degree. So I'll turn this back to you, Nancy, to talk about how to apply.
Thank you so much. That was a lot of information, but just very good content. I think I'm getting like some people asking questions directly to myself, so I'll run them through after this. So how to apply? We do as most institutions, you'll start your application online. So you'll go on the website, railroads.ca, apply. You'll see the 10 steps. So I really like to use that kind of 1, 2, 3 to guide me through when I applied. And you will pay an online application fee of $131.39. And then you'll get started. So you'll get your application ID, and then you'll be able to submit all the documents that we require. So for MACAL and the graduate diploma, we ask you to submit official transcript. So any post-secondary institution that you have attended in your life, you'll ask them to send us your transcript. So the transcript will be sent to our admission office. You will work on a detailed resume, which means it's a bit different of the resume that you will send to get a job. So you'll really reflect on your past experiences for work, for school, any volunteering, any leadership position or experiences that you had in the past. So really kind of building who you are through your resume and through the personal statement as well. So this personal statement, we call it a statement of intent. That was one of my favorite parts when I applied. It's like reflecting on why do I want to go in the program and what do I bring to the program. So reflecting of all the experience that we have through work, volunteering, anything that is very relevant, so the people in our admission team can understand better who we are and why we want to get into the program. And on top of that, go ahead, Robin.
Sorry, Nancy. I was just going to say, with that personal statement, really think about that. As I think you've described it well. It's an opportunity to reflect on why and what you bring. And it's really an opportunity for you to translate your experience, whether it's educational, work-related, volunteer-related, whatever, to translate that into what the expectations are. Like, how does this connect to what the intent of the program is and to what I bring as an emerging scholar practitioner to the program? So it's a real good opportunity to highlight and translate, because just looking at a resume, you can look and say, oh, I don't know, she did this job I don't really know what that means, but this is your opportunity to say, within this job, this is how I demonstrated leadership. This is how I was engaged in these kinds of competencies or these content areas that really are relevant to this application.
That's a very good point. And I think we use as well the personal statement. If, for example, you have been away from school,
Yeah.
or maybe the degree you did 10 years ago, your grade are not the best, you can always explain that and say, we understand that life happened. So that can be a good timing to explain what happened back then. Yeah. And 2 letters of reference. So you have all those details on the website under the admission requirements. You can really go there and have more details. And the letters of reference, we ask one to be academic and another one, to be from work. And it can be flexible if you can get it, but if you can get a letter from someone in your past academic life and someone from work, someone that is not necessarily your friends or family members, we won't accept those, but someone that know you in a professional way that can talk about you. And what we often recommend is that you use your personal statement and you share it with the people that will write your letters, so they understand a bit better why you want to get into the program and what is the program about.
Mm-hmm. And I would say, don't let the academic, if you don't get an academic, get 2 letters of, professional. These are really professional recommendations as opposed to personal recommendations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And at Royal Roads, we do 2 types of admission. So we have the standard admission, as we can see here, and then we'll talk about flexible admission. And this is great because that brings a lot of people in the cohort, not meaning that we accept everyone, but really meaning that we value all the experiences that people can have. So if you come through standard admission, we ask you to have a 4-year degree in education, arts, science, or anything that is kind of field related, with a minimum GPA of B+, plus 3 years of professional experience in a leadership or management position, which can be a paid or volunteer position. And when you apply, you don't have to decide if you want to do a standard or flexible. This is really the admission team that will look at all the documents and decide if you're good to go with standard. And if you're not, we'll just move you to flexible admission. So flexible admission will be someone with some undergrad education or equivalent, and then we ask for 7 years of work experience in a relevant field, which include 2 years again of leadership or management position, and it can be quite broad. And Robin, correct me if I'm wrong, but I went in through the flexible admission and I was able to kind of build my case on all the learning I had through other jobs and what I do on my side job and all those things that can add on.
Absolutely. And I will say just a couple of things about this. One is that relevant field. So what's a relevant field? And this is not about just making it easy to come to the program. The reality is, in climate action, relevant fields, as I've said multiple times in this presentation, are across sectors. You might come from health, you might come from business, you might come from natural resources, a background in geography, a background in science. And it's not just, come one, come all, but it's acknowledging the reality that, as I've said, climate and climate action and leadership in this space is and will continue to be across sectors. So we're really asking you to bring in your experience and explain how that connects to climate action. And you can do that. We've got folks that have come in from the retail industry, and it's like, you would sort of think, how does that? But that's relevant because we're now talking a lot about how do we shift an industry that is very not green into a more sustainable industry with thoughts about not only emissions, but how they operate. So really think about it in that way. And as you've described, Nancy, really looking at your experiences and the value of your experiences in this space, whether they are academic or work, and across these, science and social science and business. So that is, yeah. Anyway, I could say more, but I think the other thing I would just add is that these slides, we're in a bit of a transition. The B plus average will actually be a B average, which is consistent with the School of Environment and Sustainability. There are some differences across various programs and campus, but ours will align with that. So by the time you're applying, that will be a B average.
Wonderful. Thanks you for adding that. And the last bullet here on flexible admission is that all flexible admission applicants will be required to complete the academic writing and critical thinking course. As we discussed with PCS, we call them Professional Continuous Studies at Royal Roads. And I've done that course and it was amazing. I think for someone out of the academic world for many years, it's a very nice touch to be able to do that course. It's a few weeks, it's online, and we just learn again about APA guidelines and style and all those things that we need to be prepared to start the GD or the master. And we can, of course, admission will give you more detail about how to apply for that and how to get into an intake. And here are some key dates for us for next year. So the second cohort started, as you mentioned, Robin, in April this year, 2022, but we have 2 more cohorts coming up. So we have the one in 2023, and we want you to apply by January, and the one in 2024 to apply by January 2024. But again, at Royal Roads, what we do differently is that we assess your application on a daily basis. So if today you're like, yeah, I'm in, I know we already have people register for 2023. So if you're ready today, you start your application and you can get in a few weeks or in a few months. You don't have to wait that January deadline. And financial aid, we understand that going back to school is a huge decision. So the component of financial aid is important. I invite you maybe just to take a print screen or a picture of this slide here and really to connect with the team at the financial aid. They can help you with external, internal loans, awards, grants. They really know what's going on in the world, in the industry, and they can help you to face any financial barriers that you may have. And the enrollment service, always a click away. So you can just click and like email learn.more@royalroads.ca if you're a domestic student. If you're joining us from abroad, you can use the learn.more.international@royalroads.ca. If you want to connect right now, you can use your cell phone and scan the QR code to talk with someone. And if you go on our website again at royalroads.ca, you can even book an appointment with the enrollment team. So you can discuss really your background and discuss all the programs with them if you have any more questions. And thank you for joining. And I think we have a few minutes, Robin. The people that had questions just messaged me back that we answered the question throughout the presentation. So for the people with us right now, if you have any more questions, please pop them in the chat. But maybe we can take a minute to just visit that macal.royalroads.ca. And I'll just walk us through. So Robin, if you want to, we can just show, so this is kind of the WordPress you were talking about.
Yeah, so this is the program website. You can check it out, and as you'll see, there are links to any number of things. We have ongoing blogs and news. We are developing a community with links to various organizations, and we have an ongoing, so these are some of them.
Yeah.
And also on the career page, we have, I can't do it, but links to
Here.
the relevant jobs. It's just to give a taste. We don't, I think LinkedIn. Of most importance, if you go under program,
Yes.
you can go either on the icon or the drop down menus. If you go under program, you can learn about the program schedules, etc. But if you click on courses,
Yes.
it will show all the courses. And why don't you just sort of click on 501 there?
Yep.
You'll see that there's a 2021 cohort and a 2022 cohort. If you just, you can see the description. If you link on the 2021 one, you'll see this is the course. You can look at the schedule. You can look at the resources. Under the schedule, it will list all the units and what the activities are. But you also, and if you scroll down there, Nancy, you will also see that you can see current students' blogs. So you might want to check out Kara's blog, for example.
So we go and we click here.
And you'll see what this student is writing about based on assignments, based on learning, based on what they're doing in the program. And, Kara is about a little over a year into the program. Your blog's not going to look like this in the first a few months, but it develops over time, and you get you're really developing a digital presence in the space of climate action and a digital identity, a professional identity, which is part of the program, so that when you emerge, you can transfer this. It's a WordPress, so you can just get your own WordPress and do a copy and paste, and already have both a portfolio of your work to demonstrate your competencies, and also to, again, have this presence as a professional in the climate action space.
Yeah, wonderful. Not sure if anybody has a question. Do you want to look at another blog just for fun? Here, if you want to show another example.
It'll all look quite different because every individual is going to do them differently and
yeah.
have how they want to present themselves and the work that they're doing.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I don't see any more questions in the chat. Thank you so much for your time, Robin. That was amazing. We learned a lot. Even myself being in the program, I'm still learning, so that's great. And if nobody else has question, we'll send the recording links in a few hours, and feel free to connect with us. You can connect with Robin. I'm sure your information are somewhere there in the McCall at railroads.ca, or you can connect with any of the enrollment people or myself for more questions.
Yeah, and please do reach out if you've got questions. You know, I think it's a big decision to decide to enter into a graduate program. We're very confident that this program is really preparing people for an emerging world, an existing and emerging world of work, and of being really, you know, I know it's an easy thing to say, but being a change maker and being a leader in addressing this existential crisis that we find ourselves in.
Totally. Thank you so much for everybody that was in the attendees today. Thank you, Robin, and we'll see you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.